ChatGPT is one of my favorite tools right now, not only for doing research and learning new things, but also just for fun and kind of seeing what it's capable of. And as someone who is kind of a nerd about investing, I thought it would be necessary to ask ChatGPT who the best investing YouTuber is. And I was kind of surprised and flattered with the results. And then I thought, as someone who mainly talks about investing in different ETFs on my channel, that it would be a good idea to ask ChatGPT what the perfect ETF portfolio would look like. So when I type in the prompt saying build a perfect ETF portfolio, it actually caters it to my specific investing style, based off of some previous questions and prompts I've given it. So in this case, it's structured with a 60% growth and 40% value ETF combination. Now, right off the bat and just briefly looking at it, I can already tell that this portfolio is a little too diversified, because I know based off memory that QQQ and VUG have a ton of overlap in their holdings, but we can go through each one regardless. So it's listed 8 different ETFs for this perfect ETF portfolio. And at the top, it recommends VUG as the #1 ETF with 30% weighting. Now, VUG is definitely not my first choice for a growth ETF, but it's still a solid choice nonetheless for that fast year-over-year growth. And then there's VBK for small cap exposure, and VWO for international growth exposure. Then we have QQQ that I'm sure we're all familiar with at another 10% for some additional weighting towards the tech and innovation sector. Then the next 40% is more of the value side of the portfolio, consisting of VTV, a large cap value fund. And then there's the dividend ETF that everyone loves and raves about, SCHD. Then the last two are at 5% each, with VNQ for real estate exposure, and lastly, XLE for weighting towards the energy sector. Now, in my opinion, I think this is way too many ETFs. Even if each fund in the portfolio has little to no overlap, there really isn't a reason to hold more than about 3 ETFs in your portfolio. And the reason why I say that is because most ETFs are already really diversified, especially the ones that hold hundreds or even thousands of different stocks in their portfolios. So this ETF portfolio that ChatGPT recommended is honestly just a little overkill. So if it were up to me, the perfect portfolio would only consist of about 2 or 3 different ETFs. And one of my favorite 2-fund portfolios that arguably could be considered the perfect ETF portfolio consists of both SCHG and SCHD. Now, since I've talked about this 2-fund portfolio before, I won't dive too much into it, but I wanted to compare this one to the one that ChatGPT claims to be the perfect portfolio. So jumping into the backtesting tool I have here and plugging in all of the funds with the appropriate weighting according to ChatGPT's portfolio, then comparing it to the one I chose with 60% weighting in SCHG and 40% weighting in SCHD. Now, plugging it all in and comparing them on the 10-year chart, we can see that the 2-fund portfolio completely outpaces the 8-fund portfolio that was recommended by ChatGPT. Now, this is, of course, comparing the past performance of each portfolio, so there is a chance that going forward, the ChatGPT recommended portfolio could perform a little bit better, but in my opinion, that's pretty unlikely. So I think the big takeaway here is that there really isn't much of a right or wrong way of investing into high-quality, low-cost ETFs. Everyone has their own way or style of investing. I mean, just look at the people who invested into gold a year ago. They'd be up over 50%, and it's still, to this day, hitting all-time highs. So there isn't necessarily anything wrong with asking ChatGPT what the perfect ETF portfolio is and then following it. But if it were up to me, like I said, I would only stick to 2 or 3 high-quality long-term ETFs to buy and hold essentially forever. So let me know what you guys think of the perfect ETF portfolio according to ChatGPT, and I will see you all next time.